nice to meet you all. My name is Eliad Saporta. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Coriunder, which I will get my slide in a minute. What we do is we call financial-oriented user management. What does it mean? We allow any financial institution, if it's a payment service provider, an EMI, a marketplace, a fintech, to build whatever financial offering they want to introduce to the market. The slide will be great. I can do the presentation by heart, but still it will help the people.
It's here.
Fantastic. So, for you asking what is financial-oriented user management, so as I explained, so today for the presentation we talk about, quote-unquote, how to build a bank. We see a lot of clients of ours which are EMI licensed, and that with that EMI license they think, what can I do with it? What will I build next? There's several options on what to do, and then we're going to cover them in the presentation and the techniques and technology that we provide them in order to build that offering. So, the steps to issue, let's say, to build your bank, first of all, you have to decide what you want to do. Surprisingly enough, some of my clients get the license first and then think about what to do with it afterwards, and then the brainstorming session starts. But naturally, you will decide that this is the business model you want to pursue, and analyze in which license you want to take in which country, and then after that, start building the infrastructure, choosing the right partners, and of course, after everything is ready, start marketing the services around that part. So, if deciding the type and scope, there are 7 combinations that we'll discuss a bit later in the presentation about the value proposition you're going to bring to the market. There are hundreds of EMIs out there in the market. There are so many financial services offering, and as our friend there said, asked earlier, where's the innovation? We're going to discuss how we free up the cash for that EMI to build their value proposition and the value-added services to differentiate between themselves and other EMIs in the market. Applying for the license, depending on the territory, which country you want to operate, and which sections in the EU or in the UK, you'll pursue the different regulations. We won't go into depth with that, because in 20 minutes, there's not enough time to cover that. We are going to cover the setup of your infrastructure and operation. You need to understand several flows that some of the operators themselves don't even understand, that they need to go into it and build the mechanisms around that, which we provide out of the box. And choosing the partners. You might work with banking as a service provider, KYC, KYB, automation service providers, transaction monitoring and scoring, all the different third parties you need to incorporate in it. We're going to cover that in the presentation, but also in the panel that we have right after this panel with my colleagues. And last but not least, the marketing about the solution. So many differentiators in the market. There's not enough time in this presentation, but there are techniques and value propositions that will make an advantage in the market as opposed to the big players. The smaller one can actually shine. So this is what we're going to focus on, these 3 elements, the deciding the scope, setting up your infrastructure, and choosing the partners, that part. So choosing the combo. We give several opportunities within the platform, but the first option is the banking combo, giving them the ability to issue an IBAN either for a corporate account or an individual, assigning a prepaid card to that account, so they have the full banking operations within the different providers. They're incorporated together, launching a bank, a small challenger bank of sorts, starting either with their own license or sub-licensing from another entity, and later on building on top of it and expanding. Similar to how N26 started with Solaris Bank to begin with, and later on expanded to their own technology and a lot of the other players in the market. Second combo, the acquiring combo. With an EMI license, you can become a merchant of record, and with that merchant of record, receive funds from the different acquirers or APM providers, and later on distribute that to your offering. We can see the marketplace management, giving that platform the fintech to accumulate funds on behalf of sub-sellers, and each sub-sellers, the system will manage settlement cycles, deduction of fees, subscription, everything accumulated into one platform. And with the open banking part, now with the PISP model, as a platform, we integrated to several infrastructures such as Yapali and Token, and we use the same concept of orchestration and open banking. So we allow our EMIs to launch a new PISP in the market with a matter of days with those infrastructure players that are giving them the infrastructure behind the scenes. And we provide all the front-end activity of sorts, including transaction routing, cascading, and everything they need of those interfaces. And of course, the best combo is everything together. Of course, starting with the one niche, which is easier to launch with the acquiring side of it, and later on building the banking offering, meaning that they process the transaction, the settlement account lives within the system, it's an IBAN issued by the EMI as well, and then they can transact with the funds coming in from the different acquirers or service provider. That brings that special value-added service in the market. If an EMI, small institution, can bring all the offering to the merchant, he can literally expand within the network, giving them more tools and play around with the money that lands in the account, financially speaking. So you got all of that. So how do we start building the flow itself? Now, each and every type of combos have its pyramid of needs, as it's called. So we look at acquiring pyramid of needs, banking pyramid of needs, but in sorts, all of them are parallel, which is actually the fintech pyramid of needs on that part. Now, the pyramid of needs has the basic function, the basic layers as we see them, which is, as we analyzed over the years, it's the same, it's identical. We start with the need for security, the sign in, sign up, certifying the environment, being PCI level 1 certified, GDPR compliant. After that, we have the onboarding processes. Rather, if you're onboarding a merchant for credit card processing or any other payment method, or if you're setting up an account for an individual or for the merchant itself. We have the monitoring, both fraud monitoring, risk rules and limits when it comes to acquiring, and transaction scoring, both on pay-ins and payouts on the banking offering. All those services needs to be accumulated and monitored within the financial institution in order to maintain their regulation and not be exposed to audits, fines, and so on. I don't know what about you, but we're a for-profit organization, and that all those EMIs are doing that the same. The finance element allows them to build their buy rates, sell rates, splits to third-party affiliates, and any partner they want to work with, they have to track how much that's cost them and how much they're selling it on. Even if you're doing it for free to begin with and taking the cost, you still need to analyze that internally to understand how much money you're spending every month and until when you're going to become profitable. Our finance module allows you to analyze per the different type of accounts, which we'll see in a sec, and each one of them has their own pricing models and revenue streams, and so on. At the end and at the top, we have the value-added service. That's what makes you different than the other ones, because a banking offering, for example, it's the same. It's a bank account. You can put your money in it, get some interest maybe, then transfer it between friends and so on, get your card, but then where's the innovation? Where's the added value that you're giving them? Either you work with third party to incorporate innovation into that, like Nick's company, or you're working, let's say, internal tools that you can build yourself on top of our APIs. What we do when using our platform, we shift the resource management on its head, allowing them and opening up a lot more resources to invest in value-added services rather than building everything from scratch, taking high license fees. Our platform handles everything from security, onboarding, monitoring, and even some of the value-added services they can build on top of. And then they can build the specific value-added service that's going to make them different in that specific market. The pyramid of needs isn't, as much as it's a layered approach, it's very specific to any type of account. We manage multiple types of accounts. You have the business account, you have the individual accounts, the affiliates, which are third parties referring traffic or, let's say, accounts to the platform and are entitled for a commission for every referral. We take them very seriously because they are the revenue stream bringing more business into the company. The third parties are service providers, as we mentioned earlier, KYC, KYB, monitoring tools, and so on. The different acquirers, issuers, or another financial institution providing services. And at the end, the fintech itself. You need to manage the employees. You need to manage how they onboard to the platform, which permission levels do they have to access each interaction, two steps approvals, meaning two signatories approving any payout request, automating those processes, who has privileges, and so on. At the end of it, you don't have to just to build a service. You want to build an ecosystem, and you can see the most successful app help you interact between friends within that financial app, and that makes a lot more traction, a lot more usage, and the result, a lot more fees and revenue coming into the company. And how do you build such an ecosystem? You allow the different entities, the different types of accounts to incorporate between themselves and interact. An affiliate can refer a customer or refer a merchant. That merchant sees that individual referred him to it. They can generate a payment link between the merchant account and the customer account, logging into your banking as a wallet in the different interfaces. If a merchant has acquiring services, suddenly the wallets of their customers are their loyalty plans and so on. The opportunities and, let's say, features are endless when it comes to an ecosystem such as that. When we covered, let's say, the basis, now it's all a question of building step by step the different flows that an EMI or, let's say, a banking functionality needs to have incorporated. And when I look at that, I look at an orchestra. Orchestra is divided into separate sections. Each section holds on its own, but in the end of it, when you're building a financial institution, you have to be like the conductor. You have to connect between all the pieces, between the different sections of the orchestra. And when we get to the fintech orchestra, the different calculations from onboarding, using a banking as a service provider, payment processing, KYC, KYB, the processor for card issuing, fraud monitoring, the fees as we mentioned, and of course at the end, paying out. Money will come in surely, but we still have to distribute the funds going elsewhere. And each one of those sections has to be managed and has to be divided into the flows. EMIs in some cases say, I'll issue the account, what do I do next, how do I build the internal flows? And we give them that opportunity. So when it comes to onboarding orchestration, you have the automation on which type of account needs to collect which type of fields and which supporting document based on that profile. You don't want to burden the merchant with 50 to 100 different parameters, 20 supporting documents if the account itself doesn't even require it. If it's a low-risk account, we have the details, we can decide to take less information, less data, and send it to a specific provider. If we need more, the system will analyze and ask for more information later on in the process. When we go to the KYC, KYB flow, then whenever there's additional information needed and we need to trigger a KYC provider, the system will analyze which provider, depending on the country of incorporation, will come in and decide if I'm going to use SumSub for some regions, LexisNexis, Trulio for Canada and US, and all question of where the value proposition is going to come to. And after the decision-making engine will decide that the application is complete, we go to the next step. How do I process transactions? How do I accept the details? If a payment processing request comes in, I will decide how to route the transaction between the different provider. It comes from the different customer profile, maximum amount of transaction, the amount, if I passed KYC or not, do I know that customer ahead of time? It also works the same for open banking or any other payment method. You can see the routing between if it's a LATAM transaction, EU transaction, US, and so on. Going to the banking as a service, depending on the territory, we work today with 8 different providers for banking as a service to issue the IBANs. We're in the process of integrating directly to central banks on behalf of our clients. And some even work in the manual flow because their bank partner doesn't have an API access. And we give them the tools to reconcile based on CSV files and other manual mechanisms. But then the decision will be, where do I issue the IBAN? Which provider will I use for that interaction? And based on that, the system will know how to proceed for every interaction with the chosen partner for that issuing. Most clients work with 1 provider per client. Some clients work with the 3, 4, and even 5 providers in parallel because the landscape that they're serving is global on that part. Process orchestration, again, same logic. Depending on the territory where the person or the individual comes from, I will decide where to issue the card. For the likes of Cloud9, Max in Israel, Intercash for the US, we have Satchel and some other issuer in the process. The system analyzes the same concept depending on the availability on the card and allows all the interactions for top-ups and so on. The monitoring, the most important part, on every element that we discussed, either from suspicious top-ups, pay-ins from individuals who are blacklisted or companies who are blacklisted. Same goes for payouts. The EMI will have the ability to monitor everything in a consolidated interface. There is a scoring engine. Based on that scoring, he will decide if to automate payout requests or to approve them manually for review. All the decision, all in front of them, without having to have a huge staff on it. Just one person can monitor and make the decisions. As we said, the finance and the most important part, that the analysis of each one of the onboarding flows will determine the cost that needs to be applied for an interaction. And that interaction will end up being when the settlement reports, allowing them to calculate the payouts, what needs to be summarized and passed on, and will allow them to monitor the revenue. That available revenue will give them the tools to build additional services, calculate additional fees, and build on top of it. It's all about the fintech combo. Try to squeeze everything in 15 minutes. I feel like I was rushing, but I made it. It's all about the combo. When they come to us at the beginning, we always enjoy the brainstorming sessions because then we think about additional services we can build together, even if they thought about just doing the banking side of things, and then we push them into acquiring a little bit because it's easy for us to incorporate that in it. We try our best because it's additional revenue they didn't calculate in their business model. It shows potential growth, or even sometimes the other way around. Someone starts with an EMI for getting the merchant of record, and on the other hand, we're pushing into banking with some of our partners. So, we're Coriunder. Let's launch your EMI faster, better, and together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eliad.